before we converged with Silke in Portland, Dan and I went on a little road trip. So Dan had arranged a couple of meetings at companies. I was talking about beta, codecs, and transformation, and we went to have pizza at this place, fabulous place. We went to
the birthplace of the American pizza. Plain pepper.
Yes, and we had a couple of adventurous things. We went to Agile Boston, right, or Scrum Boston or something, do a session there.
Something like that.
It was some kind of road trip on the East Coast, up the East Coast from where Dan was living up to Maine, and then in Maine, this is a photo from the legendary evening. This is the oven baked lobster, something like that. The price can only be whispered. And Dan invited us to have this dinner at this fabulous place, and I still remember the lobster experience. It was fantastic. And that was the night that Dan told us. Dan had told me during our road trip in the car. Dan had already told me a thing or two about OpenSpace agility, but this evening he told these stories, part of what you already heard, how he got to that, how that worked, why invitation was so important, how engagement was connected to that, and all of these things. And Silke was just suspiciously listening all the time. Right? And so the next day, Silke said, this is the next morning, Silke said, we have to talk to this Dan guy again before we all leave, because we have to tell him that we will tweak this into something different. So like during the night or in the morning, we had this discussion about OpenSpace Beta, creating something like OpenSpace Beta, because we thought these ideas, these concepts, time boxing, the change work, in 100% invitation based, no coercion. That this was so brilliant. We thought we now have to act. Now that we see the light, now that we have the solution, we must act. We must produce a concept around this. We must publish this. We must do this together. Now we can do transformation work again. Is that correct, Silke? So we had in the morning, we had this in the hotel lobby, we had this meeting here that you can see a couple of photos of. And we asked Dan what he thought of our idea. And as you see here, he was totally enthusiastic about it. And we shared notes. I'm not sure if this is a fake thing, fake position here, or we talked about how this could work. We asked Dan, is this open source thing real? Can we really use the stuff that you created with Prime OS and OpenSpace Agility? So we had this conversation in the morning, took a couple of photos, as you can see, to in a way tell them you showed us something that's really changing everything for us with regards to very fast organizational transformation, and we want to do something with it. And here's the official photo in which I show up as well. So we took a couple of photos, as you see, and then a couple of days later, this is in New York, in Bryant Park, because we felt that in a way OpenSpace Agility had the total scheme, everything was there, but some of the beta things were missing, because of course OpenSpace Agility, correct me Dan if I'm saying something wrong, it was mainly designed to bring about Scrum or agile project work, agile teams in organizations. So Silke and I thought, okay, now we must add some things that we think are necessary to transform entire organizations, including their pay systems and decentralization and so on. So here you see me taking notes, and this was like the first design of it. Of course, it's very similar structurally to OpenSpace Agility. It looks like a copy, but some of the elements here we thought about, okay, how can we tweak this? So this was the very first draft. And this was a second draft.
It's the difference between form and content. OpenSpace Agility or Prime OS is the before after OpenSpace is the form. It's the container, and then beta is poured into it, right?
And as you so beautifully put it, then in the forward to our book, in this process, decentralization, the whole system decentralization is the star of the show. While in OpenSpace Agility, Scrum, Kanban are the stars of the show, right? And here you see Silke working on the book with some printouts from the handout. our version of the handbook. Of course, Dan was so generous to allow us to really use the materials that they had worked upon for the open space agility concept, and we were able to use much of this. Here's our illustrator from Germany, Inge, who then created designs for the different pieces and for the different roles and functions of the model. So here you see her designing. It took just 6 hours or so to work out all these designs. And here on the wall, this is, of course, the lobster evening happened in May in Portland, and this photo was probably taken 6 months later or so. We already had the timeline, the concept overview at the wall, and the book was published. And this is still a couple of months later, the first international group that we qualified in OpenSpace Beta. And I picked this photo because this group is funny in many ways. There is Peter Hahn from Korea on the right side, and Valeria from Brazil, Laser from Denmark, even a guy from Thailand joined us for that workshop, as you remember, Silke. So this was a very international workshop and really fun. And again, a couple of, this was, I think, 1 year later or so, Peter Hahn on the left side here, he decided to translate the book, our book, into Korean, and that also was published. So this is to prove to you guys how this history unfolded